Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour live this Wednesday night ahead of the Vikings-Eagles game on Thursday Night Football. And by the way, this show and all other shows are sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, Eastside Jiu-Jitsu, and That's Badass Wood Art. Remember to use promo code CT Pocket for 20% off any one item at that'sbadasswoodart.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and anywhere you get your podcasts. The season's just beginning, and if Sunday's game is any indication, there's going to be a lot to talk about all season long. And that could continue with tomorrow night's game versus the Eagles. And the news today that Garrett Bradbury is out for tomorrow's game. So obviously the Philadelphia Eagles have an absurd defensive line filled with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox. I mean, even their linebackers with Nolan Smith are legit pass rushers and can get to the quarterback. Miles, how concerned are you? First of all, how are you? And then second of all, how concerned are you with this news of Bradbury being out going against a daunting D line?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing good, by the way. I hope you're doing well too. I mean, it's obviously concerning. Like Jalen Carter came on his first game as an NFL, rookie and had 8 pressures from the interior. I think that's crazy. Like,
yeah,
like that in itself just scares you because if he can come in and make an impact like that from the jump, I mean, we don't have anybody in the interior that you're like really can like pride yourself on. Like, man, we got that guy, so we'll be okay. Like, no, we don't have those guys. So you already get rid of your starter. The right guard probably wasn't as bad as it was laid out to be, but he obviously wasn't as good either. Like he was bad. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and say he was like the worst guard in football, but he was pretty like.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah,
because he was interviewed after it was sometime after the game, and he was like, "Yeah, I think I played a good game." Do you believe? You're good, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you believe that he? Do you believe that he actually believes he had a good game, or do you think he's just saying that kind of stuff just to, I don't know, get folks off his back?
I bet you there's some. Well, the hard part is we aren't in the meeting rooms when they go over the film and they go over the grades.
Yeah.
Because their grades obviously aren't PFF specific. I know kids, right? Their grades aren't PFFs. I did just go tell him to ask his mom. PFF grade, they're like, yeah, they probably, I know teams use PFF, but like obviously coaches grade their own players, their own position, the position coaches grade their own players' performances. So my hope in that case is that like the coach graded him better than what a PFF did, or even just like what the outside perspective is. Now, that doesn't mean that he was better than we think he was, but he might have been better in some of his assignments than we knew what they could have been. And so like those little things, but overall, I'm not like he's supposed to say he thought he had an okay game. Like, I mean, I would hope he'd still want to talk about wanting to improve and do those types of things, blah, blah, blah. But overall, like, I guess I don't really have an issue with it because it's like he's supposed to try to be confident.
Yeah.
At least to the outward, public. How he is internally is completely different, but like I have no issues with him saying that.
Yeah. And like you kind of alluded to too, I don't think the game was like horrible from him. It wasn't great, but people are going to look at what Dan's calling out in the comments here, that it was the fumble, really. Like Ingram can have his flaws, but that fluke fumble where he just punches it out from Kirk, taking it from under center, that is that's not going to bode well with fans. So,
well, it was that fumble. There's a stunt he completely missed that led to Kirk getting beaten up.
Well, that D line can't pick up, or that offensive line can't pick up stunts anyway.
No,
they couldn't last year.
But Ingram he just seems to fall on his back more than you'd like it. Like offensive lineman ending up on the ground is not an uncommon thing, but he seems to end up on his back. And I think those are times where you don't want to be on your back. That's right.
So let's go back to, Bradbury being out. We talked about the people on Philadelphia's offensive or defensive line here. I looked it up. I looked up how they performed last week. Obviously, the big name is Jalen Carter, but 23 pressures last week, 3 sacks, 5 QB hits. And if the defensive line doesn't get to you, Their secondary had 5 pass breakups and an interception. This team has I mean, we talked about it in our show on Monday morning, but this team has just gotta come out firing on Thursday night, and I guess my question to you is how do you even start to attack this defense?
I mean, I think you're going to have to build in more quick game. You're going to have to get the ball out quick. How they run the ball, I don't know. Like that's, I guess, what we might see this year is like we've heard them talk about wanting to run the ball. I don't expect them to be able to run the ball that well against this team.
Mhm.
But like you need to get into second. Like if you're going to run the ball in first down, you need to get into like second and 7, second and 6. You can't always be in second and 8, 9, 10. Like you have to get 3+ yards a pop if you want to have sustained drives on the ground. And then you obviously want to stay in front of the chains as much as you can. But then at the same time, yeah, I think quick game's the best opportunity to at least get the ball in your playmakers' hands, not allow their disruptive pass rush to like get home as quickly because you're getting the ball out of your hands. And you're not putting you're putting your offensive line in a better situation too because you're getting the ball out of Kirk's hands and you're protecting your quarterback from getting hit as often as than as he did last week, or just like what you would expect an Eagles team to do to this offensive line if they let him sit back and try to drop back and have deep drops and deep route combinations and those things. So, yeah, I think quick game is probably your best route. And like a lot of bunch sets, a lot of like moving the formation, and the quick game. Like I think those are the ways to do it without 3-step drops, no tight end screens. Yeah, no tight ends. I'm cool with no tight end screens.
No more tight end screens.
But yeah, like 3-step drops. I think a lot of the Justin Jefferson, the quick glance routes, he's good at. Like the Eagles like to play man coverage, and I would assume like they did against the Vikings last year, they're probably gonna put Slay on Jefferson all over the field, and then bracket covered him, and then dare anybody else to beat you. But this time you have a TJ Hawkinson and a Jordan Addison, whereas last year it was Irv Smith, who I know folks will bring up the drop pass that could have potentially been a touchdown. I know, right? I just saw it on the timeline the other day. I think that like reminded me of it. But then you have KJ Osborne as like your third receiver. So like you have better weapons now than you did this time last year when you played the Eagles. So the hope is you can help mitigate some of those DBs because they were the way they destroyed like JJ in the offense last year was pretty embarrassing because you thought you'd be able to pass on them more and you weren't. So yeah. So hopefully you can kind of get the ball out of Kirk's hands and just get the ball into the playmakers' hands a little bit more often.
The buzzword this week is
I like that.
That's a good comment. I like that. The buzzword this week is concern, panic mode, panic button, whatever you want to say. And so I probably a little bit different than what you would expect, but given what we saw on Monday night with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and they watched how quickly that Super Bowl opportunity vanished in front of them because the offensive line could not protect. How much panic do you think Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell have, given what they saw last week with how many times Kirk got hit, and then heading into this week? Do you think they are getting close to hitting that panic button in the fact that maybe they're going to go make a move, or do you really think that maybe they just let Ed Ingram and whoever else kind of ride this season out on the offensive line and let Kirk continue to get beat?
I don't think you can react. Like the coaches and front office can't react the same way that us fans can. In the 1 week, the sky's falling. The next week, like, oh, we're going to win the division. Like we're like a playoff caliber, like ready team. Like those
if
things.
We win this week, we're
right.
calling for the Super Bowl.
100%. Like, and that'll happen, right? We'll be like, oh, the last blah blah blah. Like all the things in the world will change the complete narrative of what people thought after Sunday. So like, and that's like, as a fan, you're allowed to do that, but like they're not. Their jobs are like, it's way more. There's way more to it for their jobs than just like riding a wave every week. Like They have to find that consistency. But also like you use the first few weeks to kind of determine where you feel your team is, whether that's injuries, whether that's performance, whether that's like, do you have any viable potential options behind the starters if they're not playing well? Like those are the things that they kind of got to get through. But they need a few weeks to determine that. And now the hard part is with Ed Ingram. I know he's always the hot button here, but like, are they
There's
willing to
always
actually?
one.
Right, and it's him. It's the last 2 years, but like, would the Vikings be actually willing to like replace him? And like, those are the questions that we don't know, because obviously last year they weren't. They wanted him to go through the growing pains. They were obviously winning games, so like it didn't rear its head the way it might now. But at the same time, it's like, are they willing to actually do that? Are they willing to bring in somebody? Is Chris Reed coming back? Like, we don't know those things. But even if Chris Reed does come back, are they willing to actually like put in somebody new, and try those new options? So we'll see. Like, I don't know. And I know everybody's all about Dalton Risner, and I think it'd be great to sign him. But that dude could have signed with 32 other teams at this point, and he hasn't. So my question is, why? Is it just money? Is it just opportunity? He's 26. So at that age, you would think that he would sign a deal, even if it was I'm sure he wants more than the vet minimum, but like, right? Yeah. Like, he's still out there. And like, the one other thing I want to bring up to that is, he's not going to save this season. Like, that's just, as much as I think Dalton Risner is a solid player. I think he's better than Ed Ingram, and I know it's not saying a lot, but like, it's not so much that you're going to save a season because you got a guard that hasn't played football in 6 months, who's been at home. I know he's been working out in those things, but like, wasn't in training camp, hasn't done the conditioning in practices and preseason games and those things. So it's really hard to just say, oh, that guy's going to come in and save the day. But if you were to bring him in, at least you have somebody that you could get up to speed, and hopefully in a few weeks, maybe he is that replacement. But they haven't chosen to do that to date. So hard to kind of put anything on them for that.
Yeah, and the big thing with the Dalton Risner connection is only because of the offensive line coach, Chris Cooper. There's that connection with him and the Broncos.
I think there's that connection, but I also think
talent aspect too.
Well, yeah, right. And I think the Vikings were definitely like Ronald Darby was the guy they brought in just as like a visit. They brought in Kareem Hunt. Like, I think they're just a team that, hey, why are these guys still free agents in August and in those types of things? And let's bring them in and just like see what the situation is, what the dollars look like, all that stuff. And so I think I think any team should be doing their due diligence with any, NFL level talent player that's on the street right now, because you might need that. You might need that position today or in 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now.
First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's in the chat here this evening. Here he is. We just got our third guy, Ryan, coming back from his Costco visit on a Wednesday night.
Only free night of the week.
Yeah, well, I'm glad.
Well, kind of free, because I guess we got this. Right?
But for those in the chat, thank you for watching and being in the comments. Keep firing off some questions for us. We'll be here for a little bit longer. And also, if you haven't yet, go follow Vikes Insider on Twitter, on Instagram. Dude just pushes out great content for Vikings news. If you want to know PFF grades, injury updates, who's in, who's out, you name it, he's got it. So go follow him over on Instagram and Twitter. Ryan, we just kind of talked all about the offensive line. We already praised Baker, so we're just kind of done with that conversation.
I'm sure you guys did.
Hey, I actually do have a question for you. What do you think about Miles? Just doesn't want to rehash Sunday's game because we've already done it this week, but
we've done it twice.
But I do. But the comment came out today of Baker reading the signals of the Vikings defenders. You guys buying that garbage?
No, I think that. I mean, maybe, but like, and here's me loving Baker, right? But like, what did he do with that information? Like, yeah, he played better in the second half.
That's my point.
It's not like they went and he went nuts in the second half, right? Like I think they put up 10 points, and I mean,
they made a couple more plays in the second half than they did in the first half, but that was about it.
What I will say about him in that game is he, in my opinion, he wanted it more. Like, it just seemed like he wanted it more than Kirk did, right? Like, he made the right plays. He's lowering his shoulder. I mean, dude, he laid out. I wouldn't say he laid out, but he's lowering his shoulder. He's stiff arming by Byron Murphy. Like, He
Real
made the
question.
plays he needed to make to win that game, and that Kirk did not make.
Did you cheer when he got that first down? Be honest.
No, I mean honestly, and you can ask my buddy. My buddy is a Bucks fan, right? That I took to the game, just because his wife's cousin's husband, right? So took
I don't need
him.
to get into family history.
Real good dude. But like we were watching the game together, and I was giving him shit the whole game. Even when Baker was doing well, like I was like, nah, I'm not about it. But like, inside of me, I was still a little happy for him. But like I wasn't cheering actively like out loud. But like when he laid that shoulder and laid that hit, I mean, I think it was still it ended up being a 4th down for us anyway. So it's not like he did anything great with it. But when he lowered that shoulder out, I did get a little hype for him just because like that's gritty out of a quarterback. I like that. Like that's fire out of a quarterback that I wish our quarterback had a little bit of. Kirk did that last year, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like lower the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kirk.
Yeah, on a run. I remember that. Everyone got all hype about that too. Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of like saying like he wanted it more than our quarterback. That's just, we know that's not true. I just think he was able to
yeah, you're right. That's probably not the right phrasing.
No, you said it. You're locked in.
No, but I agree with you. He did what he needed to do to close the game out at the end. Like he made the plays he needed to at the end to close it. So like that I have no issue with.
Wanted it more is probably not the right phrasing. You're right, Miles. He just showed like a toughness. And again, it's not like Kirk maybe even had the opportunities to do that, right? It's not like he was scrambling like Baker was, but yeah.
Hey, hit up the Mannings for us. We'll hop on.
Dude, we could do it one night. I would totally do it.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Dream is already dead.
Yeah, I'll have fun.
The most short-lived idea. I would do a Manning cast. I think that would be fun.
Then do it.
I can't do it without you.
What?
Oh my gosh. Get off the comments, Ryan. All right, so let's keep talking about tomorrow night's game. Let's
never gave me access.
I know. I can take it away.
Yeah.
So we did kind of talk about the defensive line. Ryan, what are you kind of looking for, at least from the Vikings perspective, as we head into tomorrow night's game? Just given that I think most people probably are counting us out already.
Yeah, I again, if we're talking defensive line, I mean, I'm assuming you're asking about our defensive line against their strong offensive line. They struggled a bit against the.
We can.
Oh, okay. Well, I was to say the Eagles' offensive line struggled a little bit against the Patriots. Now, granted, Patriots have a pretty strong defense, and they probably have a few more players up front, specifically in that front seven, than we do, but. I think there's opportunities here. I don't know if my guy, my boy Lane Johnson, if he's slipping maybe a bit. Mailata, I didn't watch the Eagles game like very closely to like analyze this per se, but it did seem like the Patriots did get after Jalen Hurts quite a bit, and when they did, he played quite poorly. I think he had like a QBR or whatever it is of like 2.7 when he was pressured. So it's like, that goes in our favor if Flores decides to get a bit more aggressive than he did that first game, which I felt like he didn't.
The Eagle Patriots game, not to give them excuses, but there was a lot of rain to start that game too.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
That might have played at least a part in the first part of the game of how things started.
And that affected a lot of teams, right? Like all the, the Giants game was, like that as well and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, that could play into it for sure as well. But I think there's going to be some opportunity there. I don't view the Patriots as this like great team. And if Kayshon Boutte could figure out how to put his feet in bounds, like, and not to like talk shit on him because I could never do what he does. But I mean, these were 2 plays by him could have kept their drives going, including the very last play of the game, which would have put them at the 10-yard line with a chance to win with under a minute left. And he just couldn't get that second toe in. So like, I don't view these Patriots team as like a great team, and they took the Eagles to the brink. Now, again, as Miles said, weather maybe played a factor. First game jitters plays a factor. First time, I don't know the Eagles situation, but I know they have 2 new offensive and defensive coordinators respectively there. So like there might have just been some difference there that they're shaking out the cobwebs, so to speak, a bit from that perspective. But I'm feeling more optimistic than I probably should be going into this game personally. And I don't think we're a great team by any means. I just don't think that the Eagles showed out last game. So maybe that's just me. They're what's that called when they're hustling me? They're hustling me.
I do think that week ones are just typically fluky in the NFL, just because some teams are a little rusty to start, and you just really don't know what to prepare for entirely. That being said, we definitely should have won on Sunday, and the Eagles actually did win on Sunday. But
can you imagine if the Bears beat the Bucs this weekend? It's gonna be, and we lose too. I think that just make it all like, oh.
Well, we can talk about that because at what point do you guys start to get concerned? And I'm the optimist of the group here, but at what point do you start getting concerned about just this team in general? Because you lose tomorrow, you're 0-2. You come home, you play the Chargers with Kellen Moore as the new offensive coordinator. Justin Herbert, they have a lot of weapons too. They got a nice rookie receiver.
They put up a lot of points.
Yeah, they would.
I know they didn't win,
the Dolphins.
but they put up a lot of points.
Panthers, I'm not super concerned about the Panthers, but it is on the road, and
their defense is good. I don't want to underrate their defense. I know we're getting a little further down the road, but they're deep. Like Derek Brown ate Chris Lindstrom for lunch on Sunday. There's a few plays I watched that he destroyed him, and like it looks like he's developing. I know he's a top 10 pick, but I think that defense in itself is better than kind of like the Bucs, where like they have a lot more talent than you might even realize, because their team isn't probably going to win a lot of games, but they have a lot of talent in one specific area, and I think their defense has all three levels talent on all three levels.
Well, that's what I was just about to say too. Is just about the fact that like let's not overlook Carolina, because we literally did that. I mean, I think I was on the show.
Anybody,
right? I think I was on the show saying like I think it's going to be a closer game than we thought it would be. Right? Like I was the one saying it's going to be a 1-score game or whatever. I thought it was going to be higher scoring, but yeah. And Carolina, I kind of feel the same way. I feel probably a bit more optimistic for the Bucs and their offense than I would Carolina's, just because Bryce Young is still getting going and they don't have a Mike Evans and Chris Godwin like
Adam
like the Bucs do.
Slander.
So. I mean,
no panic, by the way. Born in I don't know how to say that.
We're just going to call.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are going to be panicking. I mean, even after this game, I was expecting to be 1-1 after this game. If we're 0-2, that doesn't drastically change the outlook of the season.
But it does. It does.
It does more than it should. It does more than it should, just because of how
it just means that we need to pick. We just need to pick one up where
you got to steal. You got to steal one somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to get too far down the road with the season here, but we'll just look at the next 4 games.
All right, let's talk about week 17.
But honestly, if the Vikings lose tomorrow night, they have to take one of the Chargers or Panthers, because you have to have a win on the schedule to come home and face the Chiefs. Because if you're 1-4 or even 0-5 after that Chiefs game, damn well Kwesi's, he's putting up the for sale sign. He's going to sell. At least I would be trying to move guys like Danielle Hunter. I would be trying to move guys like Ezra Cleveland for the remainder of the season, because starting 0-5 that's tough to come back from.
That's obviously like doomsday, worst case scenario.
And that's what we're talking about.
But the one thing Kwesi is Kwesi understands the numbers. So if I guarantee you Kwesi knows the percentage of teams that have made the playoffs starting 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, 0-5, and then 1-3, 1-2, 1-3, like all those things. Kwesi knows all that stuff. So if they get to a point where they feel like, hey, we've hit week 8 and it's the trade deadline and we're not in a position to like win, I think he would move assets. But we'll see what we get. Like, it's an interesting season because the start of the season, the first half of the season is really tough schedule. So like
Very difficult.
The kind of wild part is like kind of like the 2021 seasons under Zim. The Vikings started off really poorly, and then they turned it on in the second half. And that could happen this year if the Vikings were like started 1-6, 2-5, whatever the numbers ended up being, and they don't sell anybody, and then they start winning, and you're like, because I think the schedule the rest of the way just isn't as difficult. So it's kind of one of those like weird scenarios. But you want to have a hot start. That's always a better scenario for yourself, so that you can give yourself wiggle room down the road.
Yeah.
But the more those first 3, 4, 5 games you can't get it figured out, that just makes the rest of the season even harder.
Yeah, and I also think it probably is a little bit how you lose those games too. Like Kevin O'Connell was very clear after he rewatched the tape on Sunday, like, yeah, not a whole lot of concern from me. A lot of fluky one-off mistakes that
100%
are likely not going to repeat themselves. And if they do, it's probably just like one of the three and not maybe all three of them.
Yeah. Sunday felt like the opposite of last year, because last year a game like Sunday against the Bucks, the Vikings probably would have beat them by like 2 scores because of just the way they were rolling last year. I know they didn't win many games last year by more than 1 score, but just the way that game was going, I just don't think last year we were seeing the crazy fumble, like some of these situations they were going the Vikings way last year, whereas Sunday they didn't. And so I think that's just kind of like a course correct. You know, the Vikings aren't going to have all the luck that they did last year in some of these situations too.
All right. We don't have to keep going down the rabbit hole, but it is just keep it in the back of your mind. What else are you guys looking for? What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, should we talk like the injuries that the Eagles have? So like,
yeah. So
Kenneth Gainwell's out. They're starting running back. And now I think they have a pretty good staple of running backs. So like losing him is probably not fun for them, but I think they'll be okay. But they lose their starting safety and Reed Blankenship and James Bradbury, who is a really good corner, who plays opposite Darius Slay. And then their depth there is really as young guys. So they got a college free agent last year, Josh Jobe. I think it's Jobe.
Yep, it's
Eli
Jobe.
Ricks, Keely Ringo. So like younger name guys to kind of have to come in and play a lot more snaps and against, KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison. So we'll see kind of how we can match up in those areas, because if we can get some quick game against the young guys and those guys can get some matchups like that could really help give the Vikings a better opportunity. I don't want to like sit here and talk like the Vikings are like an FCS team going up against a Division I, high power Power 5 school, because that's not what it is. But there are some of these situations of like, we did have good luck last year, Flip. Like literally we had good luck. I didn't say that means I'm not saying that's why we like lost the game on Sunday. I'm just saying, I'm not even giving an excuse. I'm just saying there are things that like went the Vikings way last year that won those 1-score games where they didn't on Sunday. It is not like, it is what it is. That doesn't give them an excuse to lose the game. They should have won the game.
Flip, we can bring you on the show right now if you want to get into it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to justify
He's
it.
probably in rush hour.
Yeah, they should have won that game, point blank, period. But back to the Eagles game. I just think there's a lot of opportunity. Of course it is, Flip. But I just think there's a lot of opportunity in this game to exploit some of that if they can find those areas, because we know that Darius Slay is going to be giving all of his attention to Jefferson.
And I think Fletcher Cox might be out too. I know he's questionable right now. Yeah, I thought I heard Schefter talking about. I thought I heard Schefter talking about the fact that he might not be playing, but I mean, behind him, they have?
He is questionable with a torso injury.
Jalen Carter. They have Milton Williams. They have Jordan Davis. I mean, they got plenty of depth if Fletcher Cox
their pass rushing group is just ridiculous.
And then our offensive line's in shambles a bit. It looks like Bradbury's going to be out for sure. He's been declared out. And Schefter said that he's leaning toward the fact that Darrisaw likely will not play.
Yeah, I think the Darrisaw news scares me more.
I
didn't hear that either.
Yeah.
But
NFL Live, I think he said it, but I don't.
Okay.
I think the Darrisaw thing scares me more than Bradbury, because I actually thought Austin Schlottman played decent last week. Obviously, it's tough going side by side with Ed Ingram. You don't really know who's responsible for, what kind of meltdown. But if Darrisaw is out, I mean that hurts. That's significant because if you have your bookend tackles, it can at least keep some of the pressure away, and Kurt can do whatever. But if
you can give more help inside because
Yeah.
you have all the trust in the world on the outside on your tackles, and so it is a lot harder.
Could be a good opportunity to pound the ball with Alexander Madison though. Just line up a bunch of folks.
Sure.
Yeah, let's get
You
some
want the
3-4
passing
yard gains.
No, it's not that I want. It's not that I want it. Our run game is just so bad. Like they have not fixed it in a year. Like, and I know we only have one game sample size this year, but like the Bucs run defense isn't some like juggernaut. I know Vita Vea is a good player, so I'm not.
I was saying they've been good in the past. Like they've been top 10 units.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That front seven's really strong.
Well, Vita Vea, they were smacking us around. Some of the hits, like Devin White was laying the wood, but we definitely need a run game though. Our run game needs to be way better.
I was so optimistic with that first Madison run because it was like a 7-yard gain and there looked like there was a hole and I was like, hell yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say this in literal terms, but any three of us could have ran through that hole for 5-6 yards. We're not going down literally this rabbit hole again. I know I'm joking, obviously, but it was so big. I literally could see it from my seats, not on the Jumbotron. I could see how big that hole was all the way down on the field from my seats. It was massive. He had all the room to run there. Obviously, I know we couldn't have done that. I get it, but it was just trying to make the point that it's a wide open hole for him to run through. And so I was like, shoot, Miles, to your point, I was like, shoot, maybe we did fix this run game in a year.
Maybe, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everything after that was like, oh, this is bad. Yeah.
I think the other point too, that is a difference between the Bucs game and this game is as good as Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are. I think Devin Smith and AJ Brown are they're kind of swapping places where I think the Bucs, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin used to be one of the best duos in the league, and I still think they're really good. But I think Smith and AJ Brown might be the best duo in the league. If not, they're one of the top 2 or 3
Chase
duos.
And Higgins are up there.
Chase Higgins are but otherwise it's pretty damn close. And I think they're more explosive than the Bucs guys are. And I think that's the part that scares me the most is testing us downfield with switches and some of those things, because we just don't have the same type of speed to compete in some of those areas. And so I'm a little bit worried about some of the explosive passing game because the Eagles usually tend to have our number on some of those the last few times we've played them. And so my hope is they can at least mitigate some of the explosive downfield plays. And I don't think many teams on Sunday, especially the Eagles with the rain, had as many big plays. So I would assume they're going to come out there. It's their season home opener Thursday night. They're going to probably come out and try to be as explosive early on as possible.
I will be curious to see kind of how we choose to defend Philly because, last week versus the Bucs, we saw a lot of our secondary play a lot of snaps in those games, including our guy Josh Metellus. And I don't know. You mentioned 2 of the guys, Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, but they also have Dallas Goedert, and that's is a big physical tight end. He's in that TJ Hawkinson tier. And we spent this whole show so far talking about the defensive line, their weapons, but we still haven't even touched on Jalen Hurts. In the running for MVP last year, he's crushed us every time we've played him. He's an accurate passer. He can throw on the run. He can scramble. He can do it all. And I think that's what really makes that Philadelphia Eagles offense so dangerous is the weapons combined with Jalen Hurts. And so how you defend that, I'm glad I don't have that job for tomorrow night. I just get to watch.
If they get into 3rd and 4th and short, it's so hard to stop because of their design QB run game is just so good.
It's so good
in those situations.
And and he would crush Ivan Pace.
He just outrun him.
I don't know. Pace is. Hey, Pace played well.
Play a really good game on Sunday.
He did look really good.
Yeah,
but I don't know how you.
Isn't it kind of nice to have a young player like that though? That we have besides like the Addisons of the world, but like you're really excited about like, hey, this guy, I think someone said on Twitter, he might literally be the best linebacker on the team already. And that dude's an undrafted free agent rookie. And so it's just insane, but that's how good he played.
It's always so weird.
That's how like good teams become good, right? Like
1000%.
you look at all of these teams that like consistently are in the running. It's like they hit on these 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
And it's just like we never have done that, I felt like, over the last X amount of years. I mean, obviously you have your one-offs, you have Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielens, but like I just feel like we don't, especially in like the gritty positions like linebacker.
Well, we
always
lived
had
off
to overspend.
We lived off of like that 2015 draft for so long, and like to your point, like we lived off the same guys for like years, and which isn't like a bad thing.
Just last year,
but like it's not always a bad thing. Like, but we like cycled through the Anthony Harrises and the Andrew Sandejos of the world at safety, but like some of those other positions we really did struggle to like find, and I'm with you on that. It's nice to like have some of those late round guys be high impact.
Yeah,
from the jump too, not like 2 to 3 year developments. It's like right away.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he was really fun to watch. Everything that he did in preseason, he was kind of doing again, against real competition. I think the one thing that it just baffles me sometimes when, like, I still don't quite understand how he fell to being an undrafted free agent. I can't wrap my head around that still, because we had still talked about him being like a day 2 prospect here. And every mock draft, if we could get him in like the 5th round, we were like, hell yeah, we got a steal. And they somehow, every team passed on him for 3 consecutive days. But
yeah, couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he played really well.
And it was between us and Tennessee, it sounds like, to like sign him as a priority free agent.
Gross.
He scored a 90 PFF rating in pass rush and 75 overall. That's pretty damn good for your first game, especially as an undrafted free agent. Yeah,
he's gonna be good, man.
We got a question here. How many games would it take for us to lose to start tanking? Shit, lose tomorrow. I'm in.
Whenever the trade deadline is, it's all about the trade deadline, in my opinion.
But like 7. Also like NFL teams like don't tank. Like I know some teams have been instructed to by their owners or whatever.
It would be after the San Fran game.
But again, like it's like all of these guys have to like.
What number game is that, Matt?
7, I think. I think it's that week, isn't it?
Sorry, I feel like all of these guys need to like be able to put on like good film, right? Like they all have a job that they're playing for and whatnot. So it's like nobody's like truly going to tank. Now, obviously, yes, offloading a bunch of good players will make it easier for our team to not win. But the players are still fighting for their jobs, and the coaches need to put out their best efforts possible, right? So.
Players will never tank. It's not a player. Right. It's not tanking. Is not a player situation.
Like imagine asking Josh Metellus, "Hey, are you going to tank this game, Josh Metellus?" Yeah. No.
Yeah,
I don't care if he just got his new contract.
Well, that's like point shaving, and like to a degree, I feel like that should be kind of more frowned upon than it actually gets.
Right.
But like at the same time,
I did want to bring back the segment we did last week because I thought it was kind of funny. With the Chat GPT trivia.
I was about to take out those headphones real quick.
I'm gonna go.
I was like, all right, peace out. But I do have some. I do have some. So let me ask a few. Some of them that I think are right, we don't need to talk through, I guess. First regular season game. I have no reason to believe that they would lie about this. In 1962, which quarterback holds the record for most passing yards in a single game between the Vikings and Eagles? That's Randall Cunningham.
Yep.
All-time leading rusher for the Vikings in games versus the Eagles.
AP?
It does say it's AP. No idea if that's real.
But... Are you going to let us answer, or are you just going to like run through it?
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Well, I'm asking. Like, are you running through it, or are we like going to actually like?
No, I'll let you answer from here on out. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Otherwise, it's not as fun.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry. Poor hosting skills here. Which wide receiver caught the game-winning touchdown pass for the Eagles in the Miracle at the New Meadowlands game against the Vikings in 2010?
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
Was it DJ?
It is Deshaun Jackson, but I don't think the Vikings were a part of that game.
I would say they shouldn't have been. That
was
was
versus the Giants.
And that was a punt return.
That was his
I'm
punt
pretty sure.
return. Yeah. I was like, that doesn't sound right. Meadowland.
Yeah.
How many Super Bowl championships have the Eagles won and in which years?
One in 2017.
17.
18.
It was the 17
I think it was
season.
18. Yeah.
Yep. And then 1980 and 1960, which is the pre-Super Bowl era. Who was the all-time leading passer for the Vikings in games against the Eagles?
Fran?
Yeah, maybe Fran or
Yep. Fran Tarkington. In 2018, this one's easy. In 2018, which Eagles quarterback led the team to a victory over the Vikings in the NFC Championship game on their way to winning the Super Bowl?
Nick
Foles.
Yes.
By the way, I just listened to like a reel, and it was part of like a podcast, and they were talking to I think it was the Barstool guys maybe, but they were talking to Deion Sanders, and they called Nick Foles, his nickname that he earned after that Super Bowl run, and Deion like went off like, I will never call another man that.
What's his nickname?
Big Dick Nick.
Oh. Too funny.
Yeah, it was actually hilarious. Deion was like offended.
Yeah.
3 questions left, 2 which have just outrageous answers. Which former Vikings wide receiver famously mooned the crowd during a playoff game against the Eagles?
That one's funny.
I love ChatGPT. It's great.
What is the nickname of the Eagles stadium where they play their home games?
The Link?
Yep.
Yeah,
and then I don't think this is real, but for some reason I'm questioning myself. So which Vikings quarterback set a franchise record by throwing for 7 touchdowns in a single game against the Eagles in 2013?
Not
it real. Said which Vikings quarterback?
Yeah, and
do you remember the 2013 season? Because I do.
I know who was quarterback.
Christian Ponder, Matt Castle, and
they definitely didn't throw any 7 touchdowns.
Yeah. Those were didn't Nick Foles throw for 7 touchdowns at some point in his career though?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was versus, I forget who it was against, but
I don't remember who.
Anyway,
it obviously wasn't a Vikings game.
The answer here is in 2013, quarterback Matt Castle set the Vikings franchise record.
Good for him.
Yeah. we should have given him more credit back then.
Should have re-signed him. Damn.
Yeah, shit. But well, I think that's about it. I think that's all I have, unless there's anything else you guys want to chat about. Otherwise, we can let's do some score predictions. We're all 0-1 for the season.
I at least said it was gonna be a 1-score game.
Okay.
It's not
you want some bonus points or something?
I mean, it's just I just need to make sure people understand it. I at least understand that this team, even if they're not going to win.
I have my notebook here. I'm trying to find. I know we did that bet. Where's our bet that we made this year? Alexander Madison, longest run.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
It was going to be like under 50 yards or something like that.
I also said on Score that if Dalvin Cook was off the team, the Vikings wouldn't have a 1,000-yard rusher, and I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean you're on pace. You're on pace, but yeah, I think we could make a bet. We should make weekly bets, is what we should do.
Okay.
Jefferson and Addison, I'm going to say go for a combined 160.
I'll take the under.
I'll take the under there too.
Okay.
That's just a lot. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible.
If Matt wins, I will buy anybody that comes out to the next Lake Monster showing a beer. If Matt loses, Matt does that. Up to 3 people. Up to 3 people.
3. Yeah. All right. I'm in. Sounds good. You guys got to come to the next Vikings hangout then. So I'll take the over on. We'll do 100.
Freddie, do you have the spread?
What I do. It's a 6.5 favorite.
Do you know what the over-under is?
49.
Oh, it moved to 6.5.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
with the
okay.
Bradbury news,
Okay. Well, Bradbury on both sides.
Yeah, I'm gonna do 159.5. You guys are taking the over.
Under.
We're taking the
Or
under.
under. I'm taking the over. Okay. Yeah, Philly favored by 6.5 as of about 24 hours from kickoff. 49 over under. What do you got, Ryan?
Gosh, I'm very tempted to steal a listener born in Havermont or whatever. Prediction of 35-10, but I think it's a little egregious.
Damn,
I do believe we lose. I
ass kicked
don't
like
think we
that?
I don't think we cover. I believe we lose. I'll say a 35-17. 35-20. 35-20. So we will go on the over of the points total.
I will let you rescind your prediction because I didn't give you the weather if that plays a factor.
I mean, if it's raining hard, obviously it'll be much lower.
It's supposed to be perfect out. 79. Little windy, but sunny.
A little windy.
Yeah, 30. I'll go 35-20.
Okay, 35-20. Vikings lose, huh? Starting 0-2. All right, Miles, what do you got?
I will go 30-21. Eagles.
You weren't peeking no Vikings, so in this
I
game.
know. Jefferson's over-under is 92.5. I might take that under.
Well, I don't have a sponsorship for Prize Picks, but or any underdog fantasy, you name it.
Here he goes.
But if anybody wants it, I have a promo code I will send you.
He sent it to me, and I was like, "What am I doing? What am I supposed to do with this?"
And you still didn't sign up, by the way.
I know. I didn't want to. Did I win you any money? Remember, I picked you some.
It was very close. So I think we
got
got our money back, but we did not get the $400.
We got our money back.
I would have split with you if we won. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go 30-27 Vikings. I was ready to sell.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I don't want to lose. Losing is depressing.
I would love to win.
I think my reasoning for that is more so based on kind of what Josh Metellus was talking about when he was here with us, but this team has a very, very sour taste in their mouth. They can't win in Philadelphia. They want to, A, win a game, but B, prove that they can beat Philly in Philly. And so I think they come out. I think Brian Flores and that aggressiveness can maybe help us out a little bit. The key for me, though, is they have to finish. They have got to finish with sacks, with tackles, you named it. Thank you very much, Skull for Life Barber. I forgot to mention, at 3,100 subscribers, we're giving away a Lake Monster hat. This one right here. I have a clean one that I haven't worn, but yeah, like and subscribe.
Yeah, you get my sweaty used one.
Yeah, Matt's gonna send his used hat to somebody, so if anybody wants it.
But yeah,
we have some shirts too. If anybody has,
we do have shirts. So. Just keep liking and subscribing. We'll just give it all away. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think if this team can finish their tackles, if they can actually sack the quarterback, just play sound football. Really, don't shoot yourself in the foot. We can do it.
It's definitely possible. Yeah,
they can win this game. It's just they have to. The Vikings, again, we've talked about the margin for errors for the Vikings are a lot less than they are for other teams, especially like a team like the Eagles. So, gotta play more.
I'm so worried about that defensive line of theirs. I know you guys talked about it before I jumped on today, but that's my biggest worry.
I'm also worried about their offense just like grinding us down because they just have that ability. They have the like infrastructure on offense to do that to teams, especially a team like us that isn't deep, and so we kind of have to play, like more DBs in these scenarios and do those. Like we can't. I don't think we could effectively this isn't even a Josh Metellus issue. It's more of like a size issue. I don't think we could play Josh Metellus as many snaps this week as your second linebacker without getting destroyed in the run game. Because and again, it's not that Metellus can't hold up. It's just like that's just harder. Like they have more beef in the inside and like better at the run game than the Bucs are. And so I worry about that a little bit as well.
I was going to close the show, but we got a question.
That's a good question.
What's the Vikings' best matchup in this game?
That's a really good one.
I could pull up something for you quick.
Miles, you kind of alluded to this earlier. Opportunity for us to be able to do something right. I think it's just our receiving room against their DB room. I know Slay got all the attention last year because he had a big game, right? But I think that if with Bradbury being not really, with Bradbury being out, and their other starting safety being out. I think that's where that's our best matchup is our receiving weapons in general, receivers and Hawkinson or any of our tight ends really against their secondary. I think is where we have an opportunity to do some damage.
These are the PFF grades, by the way.
If we can block them long enough to throw the ball well.
My other one would be our linebackers versus their running backs. I'm not as
let me change it.
Concerned about some of that. Like I think DeAndre Swift is good in the pass game. I think Boston Scott's good in the pass game, but I don't think those guys are so good, especially on the ground where I think I'm as worried about the running backs versus our linebackers in a matchup.
Well, and they have Penny. I mean, I know he didn't suit up last week, but
God, that is just some horrible.
Penny was a healthy scratch. I don't know. I think people.
I think he is more of a healthy scratch because Boston Scott can play special teams that he can't. I bet he would have been I don't. And they knew they were going to do a heavy Gainwell game, but with Gainwell being out, I think he might.
He'll
run.
I think he'll dress. Yeah, I think he'll dress. It's just I'm not as worried about him. I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But, yeah.
All right, we got it. That's it. For people who are watching, again, thank you so much for joining us in the comments. We'll be back next Wednesday, 7:00 live show, recapping, probably previewing the Chargers game. We'll do a Monday morning recap about this game, but also come back tomorrow night. Flip, Jason, maybe Matt Freese is actually how you say it. We'll be doing the final score following the Vikings game. It'll be a late one. That team is ready. And to give you some awesome content following the Vikings victory, I hope, over the Philadelphia Eagles. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you all next time. Until then, Skol Vikings.